Welcome to this week's edition of Smart Counsel for Lunch. I'm Leah Kofis, and I'm one of the attorneys here at the law firm of Samuel Sayward and Baylor in Dedham, Massachusetts, where we focus our practice in the areas of estate planning, probate, elder law, and estate and trust administration. So this week, I actually had a request from one of our clients to talk about funding. What's the big deal about funding your revocable trust? So I actually wrote the article this week about 5 things that you need to know when you're funding your revocable trust. So without further ado, let's get into it. Just a caveat here, I did write the article, so feel free if you want more information, you want to hear about any of these things in more detail, you can certainly read the article. This video is just kind of the Cliff Notes version, all right? A little sneak peek into these 5 different things you need to know. So the first thing that you need to know is that if your assets are not funded into your trust, then they won't avoid probate, all right? One of the biggest misconceptions about these trusts is that you set up your trust, you sign it, you're done. You don't have to do anything else. That's actually not true. So what happens in reality is that you sign your trust, and then your estate planning attorney will give you instructions on how to put your assets into your trust. Different assets are funded differently. And that's actually the second type of thing, or the second thing that you need to know about funding your trusts, is that how you fund assets into the trust depends on the type of asset that you have, depends on your goals, depends on a lot of different things, right? So, for example, you're not going to want to treat a retirement account the same way as a brokerage account. You're not going to want to treat a brokerage account the same way as your house, theoretically, right? So every single asset that you have is going to be different. It's going to be funded differently into your trust. The third thing that you need to know is that when you go to fund your trust and you walk into the bank and you say, I want to name my trust as a beneficiary, they're probably going to say, okay, well, we need to see the terms of the trust. We want to know the name of the trust. We want to know who the trustees are. We want to know the date of the trust, the trustees' powers, all these different things. The law says that we can give them, or you can give them, a certification of trust, which is a shorter document than if you guys have signed a trust, you know it's about that thick, right? So the certification of trust is just a few pages. You can give that document to the bank, and then the bank should legally, they should be able to rely on that document in order to fund your trust the way that you want it to be funded, right? So couple caveats here. Number 1, banks always like original documents. So if you ever give them an original document, don't leave until they scan it in and they give it back to you, all right? But in most cases, they'll probably want an original certification of trust. The second caveat that I want to mention is that some banks have different internal rules, so they will not abide by the certification of trust. They don't really care about the certification. They just want the full trust. That's more rare. We don't see that as much, but it really depends on the bank's internal rules, even though the law says that they can rely on a certification of trust. So we can always talk about that, in person while you're going through that funding process. We're here to help, really. The fourth thing that I want to talk about with funding your assets into your trust is remember future assets. So if you funded all of your assets into your trust now in 2025, and then 5 years later, you have all these new accounts that have not named the trust, those assets aren't safe. You want to make sure to fund new assets into your trust as you open them. That's one of the reasons that we try to have review meetings with you. We say 2 to 5 years is a good, no more than 5 years, certainly, is kind of a good ballpark for coming in. We'll see what your assets are. We'll see if anything's changed in your life, and we'll be able to, if you do have new assets, we'll be able to let you know how to fund those new ones into your trust so that they're not missed. And if they're missed, then they go through probate, which is the whole, thing we want to avoid with this revocable trust. The last thing I want to mention is get a confirmation of the completion of your funding. So when you go to the bank and they say, you've brought your certification of trust, and they say, okay, everything's good. See you later, right? And you walk out of the bank. In some cases, we've seen that the bank actually won't do what they say they're going to do. And again, it's more rare that that happens, but I have seen it quite a few times. where the client thinks that everything's fine. They did all the steps that they need to do, right? And they just haven't followed up with the bank, or the bank hasn't followed up with their funding team or whatever it is that they're is responsible for funding those assets into the trust. So we highly recommend getting written confirmation from the bank saying that everything has been funded into the trust. That's going to be huge. Once that happens, you can check it off your list and then you're done. You don't have to worry about it until you open a new account, and then you have to just fund that one account into the trust. All right. So all that said, if you want to read about any of this in a little bit more detail, you can feel free to check out my article. Check out other videos as well, other articles that we have posted. We try to put out new content every week, so check it all out. If you want to see any more information about, probate, estate planning, estate and trust administration, or elder law. As always, feel free to like and subscribe. And again, if you have any ideas for a video or for an article, feel free to reach out and let us know, because, we want to be helpful for you guys. And hopefully we are. So yeah, feel free to reach out and give us ideas for new videos, anything that you really want to see, you really want to hear about. So as always, it's been a pleasure.